Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this webinar today. We have the pleasure of being joined by the wonderful Emma Jane Williams from Target Group. This is a session that I have seen before in person, and I can assure you it is absolutely fantastic. So Emma came across to an event we were hosting in Cardiff. That event was for members of our Women in Tech network, which for anybody that isn't already part of that or doesn't know about that, is a completely free to access community, predominantly UK based, but we do have members in 46 countries, and it's open to any individual, female or male allies that have an interest in tech careers and improving diversity in tech. But also we work closely with employers to support their people, but also get their support in supporting other people. So there's lots of opportunities for employers to come along and do things like this in terms of sharing their expertise, hosting events with us, and a whole variety of things to kind of expand their network of diverse candidates and enhance their employer brand. So some stats around that network for people that aren't aware of it. So we've got 3,000 members currently. We run sessions like this every single week with a mixture of content from these kind of topics, which are more about health and well-being. We've got topics around personal professional development in terms of soft skills and technical skills. And we run a variety of topics that are more focused on improving organizational ways of working. So things around inclusive hiring, things around creating inclusive cultures, creating more male allies in the business, those kind of things. Alongside our webinar content, we do run monthly in-person events. We also run weekly networking opportunities through Teams and other facets. And the thing that kind of underpins all of this that we do is we run a mentoring marketplace, which I think is probably one of the biggest tech mentoring programs in the country. It has 1,500 successful mentoring relationships to date over a 5-year period. And we've got a pool of 700 mentors able to help people at any stage of their career. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Emma to take us through this session on menopause and all the things that we as individuals and employers can do to improve the lives of the women working in our teams. Over to you, Emma.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks very much. I'll just share my screen a moment, but as Kevin mentioned, that it's not a type of session where you have to submit questions. It'd be nice if people got involved in the discussions as well. So that would be really, really useful. So please, ask questions, contribute, and share as much as you want to, really. But it's probably worthwhile that I introduce myself first of all. So my name is Emma, and the L&D business partner in Target. What that means, and when people say our job descriptions, but our job titles, what does that mean? For me, that means that I get the pleasure of supporting our people's growth and development, and that is not just for performance, but supporting people to become the best versions of themselves. And alongside my L&D role, personally, I'm super passionate about not just this topic, menopause, but just the topic about talking about women's health and breaking down taboos and really raising awareness in the workplace. And I remember when my passion for this topic first started, and many years ago, I remember that I bought my first house. And as any of you first moved into your very first home, how exciting it is. You can't wait to show it off to your friends and family. And my grandmother came over to visit, and she went and used the bathroom. And she came back downstairs, and she was quite a stern kind of lady, and she gave me daggers across the table. And I remember thinking, oh my God, she doesn't like the colour of the towels or something like that. What's going wrong? And after a while I said, what's wrong, Nan? And she looked at me and said, you've got things in your bathroom that shouldn't be on show. And I was thinking, what does she mean? Does she not like my hand soap? Or like, what is it that she's, really upset with me about? And she said, ladies' things. And I was like, me, bold, what? You mean sanitary towels? And she went all red in the face, and she was like, you need to put them away. And I remember thinking, like, how sad is that in this day and age, that those are the things that it's still such a taboo topic, still things that people don't feel comfortable talking about and feel embarrassed about. And then I remember thinking, God, if I ever have the pleasure of having a daughter of my own, this is not going to be something that is a topic that's off the table, that's hidden and shied away from. As dramatic as she can hang up on the Christmas tree if she really wants to. And I wanted to create that openness that women's health is not something that is hidden away. It happens to all of us, and it's something that we should be proud of and also be willing to open up and talk about. So that's, I think, where my passions first started, which is around talking about topics like this, and especially in the workplace and how important it is. And that led then on to quite a few, well, loads of years later, was when personally for me, menopause symptoms started. And when I looked at things like media, while it's amazing, there's been a huge media shift in the last few years, what's known as the menopause turn. People like Davina McCall and Lorraine Kelly have massively increased awareness of menopause, and the prescription of menopause has gone up through the roof as well, massively. So that was really helpful for me when I personally started experiencing symptoms, because there was so much support out there, so much support that my grandmother and even my mum never ever received. I don't remember them ever talking to me about it. So again, it was probably something that they experienced by themselves in silence, even amongst friends and family. So can you imagine then in the workplace, even more so, it's not something that was ever talked about. So I had loads of that external support and so much opportunities to understand what I was experiencing. And for me, then that got me thinking about the workplace, and that wouldn't it be great that if we change that shift in the workplace as well, and that we create environments in work where people feel free to talk about it. People have access to the support that they need. So in Target, I'm super proud that even though we still have more things to do, but we have initiated some great initiatives to really change our environment for the better. And today I want to share some of those initiatives with you. So I'll be talking to you a little bit about some of the learning that we're doing, some of the shift of people's behaviours and different initiatives that we've done to really make sure that menopause is a conversation that is openly talked about in the workplace. So the very first thing was that we really wanted to create an environment for women to be able to continue to have achieve their full potential in the workplace. When we look at some studies, we are an aging population. We are working longer. There are an increased number of women in the workplace, including many more in senior positions, and that's just going to keep getting higher in the future. So it's important that we talk about it and we create that right environment, but not just for women. What I was really important to me is that we bring that awareness to everybody. So we bring that support, that awareness to men as well, to really help them to understand and support not just their work colleagues, but also their wives, their partners, their friends, etc. Because it is just a transition. It's a transition that we need to have women need to feel that they've got the permission and the resources in their workplace to talk about it without any kind of fear or embarrassment. So we started off by just that, by starting to talk about the menopause in the workplace. And I'll be sharing as well some like really shocking statistics that I found. Because the impact on our people is huge. So in Target, we recognise that good menopause care can play a key role, not just within the Target workforce, but beyond as well. Because if we're happy at home, then we're going to be happier in work. If we're able to support our friends, our partners, our neighbours, even so, then we're going to be happier in the workplace as well. So we're committed to supporting all of our people because we recognise the impact that this has on them at home and also in work. Some of those things have been creating awareness for all, and some of that awareness is through learning sessions that we run every month in Target, which I'll be taking you through parts of that today. One of the shocking statistics that I read was that in the UK, on average, only 25% of UK companies actually have a menopause policy. And a couple of years ago, we were one of those that didn't have one. So we have introduced a menopause policy. We're having regular wellbeing conversations and support groups available for everybody. But why is it so important? Why is it so important for us to talk about this topic in the workplace? if we think of something else, and if we think of if there was something that half of the UK population was to experience in their life, which could be a life-changing condition, which, if ignored or disregarded, could contribute to an increase in mental health issues, potential leaving of jobs, relationships, we would absolutely want something to be done about it. And that's the current situation that we're in the UK. 33 million women are in the UK, with many feeling that in the workplace, when it comes to menopause, that maybe I don't want to be known as the menopausal woman, or I don't want to be seen as the emotional one, or the one that maybe needs a couple of extra breaks. We don't want to be seen as need to be treated differently. Maybe we might feel that, oh, I'm a little bit slower than I used to be, or I'm a bit more tired than I used to be. So that might mean that I can't say about it because people might judge me for it and might think that I'm not going to be good enough to do my job anymore, or maybe I'm not at the position where I can have additional responsibilities or development things, etc. Because when we are going through the menopause, negative beliefs that we have about our skills and capabilities can lead to us having different behaviours, which in turn can have an impact in the way that which women work and live their lives. But with a few small changes, we can create awareness in the workplace that can make a big difference. The menopause can get in the way of how women see themselves. If we think about our personal identity, it's made up of loads of things. Some examples are our name, our age, our profession, but really it's anything and everything that makes us who we are. And there are times in our lives where the way that we perceive ourselves changes, and that could be for better or worse. Could be through an illness or a relationship breakdown or a career change, marriage, parenthood, the list goes on. And menopause is one of those times for women, with some finding that their own personal identity is really rocked. It can make you feel really different about yourself because of the physical, psychological and changes that we're experiencing. Another reason for me in the workplace as well of why it matters so much is we probably all of us have got initiatives in place and reports in place where we record our gender pay gap. And the gender pay gap, as we know, is not just about the salary itself, it's about the opportunities that women have, because the gender pay gap widens with age. And if you consider some of the symptoms, which could be loss of confidence, feeling a bit stressed, it's not surprising to learn that 14% of menopausal women actually request to go part-time, and 8% don't even apply for a promotion. So all of those things will have an impact on us achieving some of the initiatives that we probably all have in place to try and improve our gender pay gap. Kevin, can you let me know if there's any questions? Because I'm looking at my screen and looking at myself more than I'm looking at anybody else. So please raise
You're all
your
good
hand
for
so I
now.
don't miss
You're all good,
any
Emma. Nothing's come
questions.
through yet.
Perfect. Okay. Some of the reasons of why it matters is that creating awareness that menopause isn't just about having hot flushes and periods stop. I was super naive, and I remember thinking to myself, I can't wait for menopause because it means I don't have to deal with periods anymore. And then when symptoms started, I remember thinking, oh my God, it's actually not easy after all, because it wasn't conversations that growing up that we had regularly. So some of the symptoms really took me by surprise, and also some of the symptoms that I actually didn't realize until I was mid-40s that were connected to menopause. As I touched on earlier, it affects 51% of the population. And for many women, menopause happens at the peak of our productive lives. And that was certainly one that I recognised. When my children were younger, my job and my career was super important. But in the back of my mind, I always thought, right, once they've gone to high school or once they've started, caring for themselves a little bit more, that's when I can really, really put focus in my career. And that happened at the exact same time as menopause symptoms happened. So it can really happen at a most inconvenient time when it comes to our career as well. And without knowledge, it can be assumed that it's mature women having hot flushes, mood swings, and going through what used to be called the change. And a really sad fact for us in the UK is that on average, 10% of women actually leave their jobs due to menopause symptoms. And I think that's a really sad statistic. And I genuinely believe that all of us in our organisations that we work in can stop that happening by making just a few simple changes and making women feel that, yes, it's something that's happening to them right now, but that doesn't have to stop my career. It doesn't have to stop my career progression. I just might need to make a couple of adjustments and have maybe some additional support from my colleagues along the way. Another reason for me is why it matters so much is a recent CIPD study found that 30% of menopausal women surveyed said that they've been unable to go to work because of menopause symptoms. But out of that figure, only 1/4 felt that they were able to tell their leaders the real reason for their absence. So that's a very telling sign that actually we still have that level of taboo around when it comes to the menopause, and the important role that we all play in our organisations, that if somebody does need to take time off due to menopause symptoms, that we are aware of it, because we could be having menopause related absences in the workplace that we don't even know the reasons behind it are. But if we create a culture where women feel comfortable to talk about it, then we're going to be able to put the right support in place. So for us in organisations, it can have an impact on our attrition figures, our career progression figures, but also our absence and sometimes unknown absences as well. So what is it? So if we think about menopause, so the menopause is a normal part of the life cycle where levels of hormone estrogen decline with age, so periods become less frequent and eventually stop altogether. And as the menopause approaches, the supply of eggs in a woman's ovary dwindles and the two sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone, fluctuate and begin to decline. I'm really proud that I've said that actually correctly, because I stutter every time with some of those terminologies. But the impact on a woman's body is huge, and that isn't just the obvious ones that we all recognise. It's on the brain, it's on the skin, it's on the bones, and it's also on our hearts as well, because it can make us feel very different about ourselves. And there are different stages, and it's really important for us to know the different stages and to be able to recognise them in ourselves, but also in our colleagues as well. So if we think about pre-menopause, which refers to the years when our menstrual cycles is normal, then we've got the perimenopause, which refers to the stage which can last for several years, which again was a statistic that I didn't expect. It can actually last between 3 to 5 years. And during that time, there can be lots of different symptoms to deal with. Then we've got the menopause, which is the point in time that can be identified when women have not had a menstrual cycle for 12 months. And then you've got the post-menopause, which is the end of the menopause when a woman hasn't had a period for 12 months. And like I said, even though I was experiencing symptoms, until I did some research myself, I didn't have any idea that there were different stages and different symptoms. So that's why it's so important for us to know these different stages, because the support will be different depending on what stage somebody's in. And it's also worth noting as well is that there isn't one size fits all with the time frame either. Some women will experience symptoms, temporarily, some up to 10 years. So for us to have that understanding about what happens during somebody's menopause journey is really important. Now, when we think of the symptoms, there are on average around 34 of the most common symptoms that 8 in 10 women will have at some point, and some of these symptoms can have a significant impact on our daily lives. Some of these are the most common symptoms I've outlined here. Now, when we are facilitating this session in Target, this is a real important time for us to sit back and reflect and think about how some of these symptoms might impact somebody in work. So I'm just going to give you a moment to just have a little look and reflect and just do that. Just think about how actually can some of those symptoms have an impact on people in the workplace. So I'll just give you a moment. And what's important for us in Target is to understand the symptoms, to be able to recognise them and really think about how they can impact people, and also then how we can support somebody. And there's some I just want to call out as well. Like if you think of hot flushes. So can you imagine like somebody experiencing a hot flush right before a really important meeting? Or can you imagine having a hot flush in the middle of an interview where you are absolutely trying your best to deliver the best version of yourself that you can, and then experience a hot flush? So that's why it's so important for us to be able to recognize that, so we can support women as best as we can. Hot flushes is another one. Like if somebody's experienced 2 or 3 hot flushes in the night and have disturbed sleep, and then be expected to get up and show their best version of themselves at 8 o'clock in the morning, are they going to be able to do that? Probably not. Another one I'd like to call out, which is a real common symptom, is brain fog. So brain fog can cause our colleagues to have trouble concentrating, memory loss, and struggle maybe focusing. And the reason I wanted to call that one out is because it affects around 34% of women going through the menopause can experience brain fog in their workplace. And while sometimes people say like, oh my God, or, make a joke of it, it can actually be really frightening. And for me, my personal example of that, and I didn't even recognize that it was related to menopause, is that I moved house to a slightly different area. But I was there for about 6-7 months, and I went to the Tesco's that I'd been going to since I moved, exactly the same route. I did my food shopping, put it in the boot, started my engine of the car, and I thought to myself, I can't remember how to get home. And when there's times when you put your card in the card machine and you can't remember your PIN, and then the more you try and remember the PIN, the harder it is to remember what it is. And I was really trying to remember, oh my God. And then I had to actually put my sat nav on. And after a couple of minutes, I knew where I was going. And I felt really frightened, thinking, how on earth can I have not remembered how to get home from the supermarket that I'd been going to for 6 months? Didn't tell anybody. But that evening, as we all do, I was Googling things like Alzheimer's in young people, or what are the symptoms of dementia in somebody that's young, because I didn't connect the dots and think that actually that could be a sign of menopause. I thought it was something a lot more severe than that. And think about again how that can impact somebody in the workplace. If there are times where it reminds me that to recognize and be kind sometimes, because if say one of my colleagues forgets to reply to an email, or maybe doesn't get something to me on the time that I've asked, rather than be like, oh, can I give you some feedback because you've missed a deadline? Is there something else that we can do if that's unusual behavior in somebody, then it could be reasons behind those things. And sometimes it might just be a case of checking in with somebody and making sure that they're okay, because as I said, some of those symptoms can feel really frightening. Hot flushes is probably the common one that we recognise when it comes to menopause, and it's important, and that's why I think it deserves a special mention, because they are so common. And I thought, oh, it'd be fine because I love going on holiday. I love the sunshine. I love being hot. So hot flushes to me will be a breeze. But it is totally different than just feeling a bit hot. They range from a few over the course of a week to sometimes up to 10 or more in the day or night time. And it can feel like a sense of warmth to that feeling of being consumed by a raging fire from the inside out. It can then cause and induce facial and upper body flushing, sweating, and sometimes confusion, which can then lead to a sudden chill. Nighttime flushes can often result in disturbed sleep, getting up in the night, changing bedding, nightwear, showering more often. So let's imagine like having a disturbed sleep every night, and then again coming into work the next day and trying to give the best version of yourself that you can be. Some women report that it can make them make it visible and vulnerable to comments or embarrassment. If your face is sweating, they can be deliberating and last for years. So as I've touched on earlier, let's think about the impact that can have on somebody whilst in a meeting, doing a presentation, or in the middle of an interview. The other thing that we're building awareness of is that there is support available, and one of the main support is HRT. So what is HRT? HRT is there and available to replace the two hormones lost during and after menopause. So they can either be estrogen if somebody's had a hysterectomy, or estrogen and progesterone if the uterus is still in place. HRT is normally sought by individuals who struggle with symptoms, and the main benefit is that it can really help relieve some of these symptoms. And sometimes the benefits outweigh the risks, but it's not suitable for everybody. So our recommendation is that if you want, the best thing to do, if you think that that might be something that might be a benefit to you, is to go and see your GP. But there are also lots of alternative therapies, which we are encouraging all of our people to think about. And that could be our lifestyle measures, so such as exercising regularly, eating healthy diets, cutting down on coffee, alcohol, spicy foods and smoking. Also CBT therapy, which is an evidence-based approach to therapy, which is used to create healthier ways of thinking about ourselves, and it can help develop strategies to manage common menopause symptoms. Some of the things that we've done in Target, again, to help us moving more of any of us to office-based jobs, we spend far too much sitting down, don't we? And that's not going to help. So we have introduced menopause walks for those of us that are back in the office. So we just go for a little walk and a chat and catch up and talk about things related to menopause, also while exercising at the same time. So let's encourage those things in the workplace as well. But what else are we doing then? So the things that we are doing in Target to make sure that we are a menopause-friendly employer, which is to understand that what impact menopause is having on our people. So when we started the menopause awareness sessions, originally I thought it will last for maybe a couple of months. It'd be interesting. But it's nearly 2 years on, and we are still running those sessions every single month, and we are still having so much interest. And it's similar to the things that I've been talking to you about today, which is just about creating awareness. So making sure people understand what it is and how people might be feeling. And what I loved about these sessions is I didn't want them to start off with to just be a group of middle-aged women talking about how we're feeling, because we know already. What we want is for other people to understand us as well. So one thing I'm super proud of is at the start, yes, it was predominantly women that came along, but actually now even the one last month was actually a 50-50 split, which is brilliant because it's creating menopause awareness for everybody in the workplace, not just for women. I've even had a couple of people reach out and say, oh, I hope you don't mind me coming along to the session, but I'm coming to support my wife. Is that okay? And like that is what is amazing, isn't it? Because any of us are connected, our roles are connected to supporting people. It's not just about supporting people during the hours of 9 to 5. It's about supporting just people. And if that's their home life as well, then that's fantastic. So yeah, their uptake has been great. So it's creating awareness of what it is and how it affects our people. It's removing the taboo to talking about it like what we are today. We've also have support groups available where people come together to talk about their experiences. We have things like coffee and cake mornings as well. Again, everybody is welcome to those. We've even had a couple of people reach out and say that, oh, my wife heard a couple of things in the background and she'd like to join as well. It doesn't even work for the company, but is interested in the topics that we're talking about. We have a dedicated menopause policy, and what that includes is it sets out the rights that our colleagues have when experiencing menopause and the symptoms available. And this is to make sure that everybody in Target feels supported and that it's shared with the whole organisation, it's reviewed, and it includes things like how it affects our people, how people impacted it differently, what support is available, what training is available to everybody and managers, supervisors, team leaders, and who can people go to have a conversation about these things. It also includes our commitment as well, and our commitment in Target to create an environment that's menopause friendly for all of our people. And some of the things that we've encouraged for everybody is that to understand that it's a normal part of life, it's okay to talk about it. Let's all commit to understanding more about menopause, understand the symptoms that may be challenging, create the culture where it's talked about, openly reflected, and how it impacts not just the people that we immediately work with, but also our friends and family and colleagues as well, and really think about how we can support our people, while also considering cultural sensitivities as well, and make sure that it's a topic that if you want to talk about it, there are spaces that we can do. And this is some of the things that we have all committed to in Target to encourage this culture that we're aiming for. And there are some of them that are obvious. And the overriding thing I think here is to just show care for each other, like just show compassion and care for each other, and just sometimes take a moment first before reacting to things. Advance notice of meetings when we can really help. How many of us, whether we're experiencing menopause or not, when a meeting goes in 2 minutes before and we're expected to contribute or bring something in, like have these amazing ideas, and off the cuff, sometimes we're not able to do that. So when we can, let's all commit to putting advance notice in for meetings. If possible, staggered lunch and break times. There are a couple of women that in Target that this has made a big difference to. So rather than have a 1 hour set lunch break, have staggered lunch breaks instead. So I just need 15 minutes to go and have a little walk around, or to go and have just some time to myself. I don't need a full hour. It actually works better for me having staggered lunch breaks instead. And I think the impact that can have on somebody, one, they feel valued, they feel listened to in the workplace, but also they're probably more productive on that day as well, if that particular time suits them better. Think about how we can change the workspace to help temperature control. Let's also not assume that working from home is the best option. At the start of the session, where I mentioned that the impact is not just on our bodies, it's on our brains and also our hearts as well. So we might be feeling a little bit out of sorts, we might not be feeling ourselves. So sometimes being around people is the best thing. So having that colleague next to you in the workplace and going for a bit of a coffee or having a chat can actually really help. So working from home might not be the best option. Let's commit to always continue to learn. Let's have open conversations with each other. Let's improve transparency. And let's accept that ED&I is a continuous effort, but also not just for HR as well. I think some of us automatically think that ED&I is either a leadership initiative or it's a HR initiative, but actually ED&I is an initiative for every single one of us, because every single one of us can have an impact. Let's avoid making assumptions. And that for me goes back to when I said earlier, if somebody is not, if their behaviours are not where they normally are, or maybe they're missing something or forgetting things a little bit more than they used to, let's not just, let's check in and avoid making assumptions that somebody's behaving because they're in a bad mood or because they're upset with you. There could be other things going on. So let's be kind. Let's listen more, let's encourage our people, and let's also help with symptoms. For me, for the helping symptoms, some of the things that have really worked is the coffee and cake mornings, the having a walk at lunchtime sessions, and just help each other out. Some of the support available that we've got available with Target is our private medical insurance. So again, making sure that there's the support available is promoted as well and recognised. We've got mental health first aiders that anybody can reach out to. We've also got our menopause mentors. So our menopause mentors are a group of about 10 at the moment, volunteers that have volunteered their time to really support each other. So we have a dedicated page on our internal site where you can see all of who our menopause mentors are, a little bit about them, so we can reach out to each other and help and support each other. And that is from a range of different things as well. We've got ladies that have volunteered to be a menopause mentor because they've gone through early menopause due to medical reasons. So lots of different variety of mentors that are giving up their time to just help and support each other. Promoting the use of Unum, occupational health. We've got our menopause support group on our internal communication, which is where we are just posting things. And from this, I think I need to have a bit of a, commission based from Amazon, because one lady posted a link which she said, oh my God, has made my sleepless nights a dream. We didn't even realize that you could order them temperature control pillows, which can really help with the night sweats. So one person posted that on our Yammer page, and the amount of people that have then, benefited from that. So it's just a space where we can recommend things. It could be articles, it could be books, it could be lots of different things. Again, to promote support available to each other. And also sometimes it is just to say, oh my God, I've had a really bad day. Does anybody else have that? Just to connect to people. Help at hand, and to continue the learning for all. So as I said, we run sessions every single month that everybody in Target and their friends and family, if they want to, are able to join the sessions. External charity support as well. So recognizing that there are lots of external support available. So making sure that our people in Target know who those external supports are and feel comfortable and have the space to be able to reach out for them as well. And lastly, what's next for us? What's next is to continue creating awareness, because originally, naively, I thought it would be something that we did for a couple of weeks, but actually recognise that this is something that we need to continuously do, continuously encourage these conversations. Specific sessions for leaders as well is really important. So leaders feel comfortable having these conversations with their people, and that our people feel really supported by their leader. So hopefully that is given some of you some things and what we're doing in Target Group. I would love it as well if there is anybody on the call that are doing other things, because let's help and support each other, that have worked in your organisation. That would be lovely to hear from you, and along with any questions.
So you've taken the words directly out of my mouth there, Emma, because as I said, the reason we invited you along is because that's such a comprehensive look at the things that are available, and it's great to see the stuff that Target have implemented in terms of educating all the staff, creating communities, giving access to resources, and internal and external resources and advice. But let's not assume that you're doing everything right. So there is potentially things that happen in other organisations. So if any of our attendees do have things that you have seen in your businesses or elsewhere that you think is really great that we could all take away, please do take the chance to come and share that. And of course, if you've got any other questions for Emma, then this is your golden opportunity to ask those. So I'll give you a few minutes. While you're doing that, building up the courage or type in, I'm just going to share my screen with the link to our Women in Tech website. So anybody that wants to learn more about the Women in Tech Network that have created the opportunity for this conversation to happen, just need to scan that QR code. It'll take you to our website where you can register your interest. Do we have any questions or any suggestions? We're having requests for the recording and the transcript and the slide deck, and people saying thank you, which is obviously very positive. Getting thumbs up, again, very positive. But yeah, before we break, we don't want to cut anyone short. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to add? Oh, yep, Seema, your hand's raised. Go for it.
Hi, Emma. A really interesting conversation. Like you mentioned about the confusion with regards to going to a new place. I went through something similar. So I was working with Sony Pictures at the time, and we had moved to new offices, but I drove my car to the old office, and I was trying to use my a key to open the car park barrier, and it just wouldn't open. And it took me a few seconds to realize that I've gone to the old office and I had to go to the new one. And I attributed it to being overworked or just scatterbrained, trying to do multiple things at the same time. But now when you look back, you realize that the perimenopause had started long before it was recognized, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's fabulous that you're doing this within the organization. And a lot of people are now aware of what what's happening, how what goes on, especially, and it's not necessary someone after 40. Women can go through menopause at as early as 30 years of age. But I just wanted to understand how, besides awareness, what are the tools that can be used for women to then, you mentioned about CBT, you mentioned about coffee mornings and walks, but probably something more than that, to just help, calm their nerves down. Uh, uh, so if there are any other suggestions that you would recommend as regular practice.
Yeah, thanks, Seema. I think some of the first one that we shared was like a bit of a symptom checklist, because I went first of all to the GP first of all, and I was a little bit brushed aside and said, "Come back when you're 48." Because again, I think still there's still a lot for people to learn. So the last time I went, I had a bit of a checklist, because again, you can forget, can't you? So I had a checklist with all the things that and some examples and times as well to remind myself, and that really helps. So that's the other thing is we're sharing as well, because like you said, some of the symptoms you don't put down to perimenopause, and it could just be down to just normal stresses of everyday life, isn't it? But recognizing and having a guide that maybe you can put that down to something and think, oh yeah, actually that is connected to menopause. Because I think I probably, similar to you, probably started a few years before I actually recognized that that's what's happening. So for a tool for us to be able to have that is really, really useful. And I also think it's the leadership training is so important here as well, for leaders to be able to have the right conversations, because like with any topic like this, if you don't feel like you know enough about it, rather than cause offense, you say nothing. I've had times like that, where rather than say the wrong thing, I've said nothing. And I think that's important as well, to encourage leaders to feel comfortable for having that conversation, and for also for our people to feel that they can approach these conversations without feeling a bit, embarrassed or a bit shy about things. So definitely, I think leadership training and support is really important in that space as well, to encourage people to have the conversations. And then it's okay to say, I'm not quite sure. I don't know. I can't what you're going through. But what I do know is that I'm here to listen, and I'm here to support you, and I'm here to still continue to encourage you. I think that that's okay as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. And for women themselves, I guess, there are lots of yoga, there is mindfulness activities to manage themselves too. But yeah, it's important to note that not just the leaders looking at their teams, but how can we help each other? Yeah.
Yeah, we had a few months ago, we had a choir in lunchtime. So that was really, really nice as well, because it's also important to remember that it's okay to have a bit of fun as well. And sometimes when you're feeling a little bit, down on yourself, or you're experiencing something, laughing is some of the best medicine. So we had a choir come into Target, which was, we might not ever get on Britain's Got Talent, but what we did is we had that fun in work, and actually singing is such a great stress release. My partner doesn't agree for him, but for me, when I'm singing. So it's one of the things that we can do in the workplace as well, to encourage that, collaboration together, and that enjoyment and having fun, but which actually will help with some of the symptoms as well, because we all feel great when we're laughing, don't we? So it doesn't have to necessarily be connected to menopause, but what are the other things that we can do to encourage that enjoyment and having fun in work, while also helping at the same time?
I had raised my hand, but just to build on that, Seema, I think for me personally, this set, and obviously I'm slightly biased because I work with Emma, but my wife is going through perimenopause, and actually this was really important for me as well, to be able to support her as well as my colleagues, right? And I think it kicks back to the piece that Emma was talking about this not being just for in the workplace. yes, leadership training is a must. But actually, if we're talking to our friends, family, and colleagues outside of the workplace about these things, it becomes less of a taboo. So I took so much away from the sessions, and actually feel like I'm in a better position to support my wife, although I'm not necessarily in the best position to support my wife, but trying is the key, right? So I think there's something in that as well about whether your partner's going through it, your wife, or whomever, actually talking about it outside of the office, I think, is probably the thing that supports massively as well. Because I've had conversations with colleagues in the office, and somebody said to me the other day, actually, was, oh, I spoke to BJ the other day, and I learned something from you about menopause. When I think her perception was she should have been explaining it to me, which was quite nice to hear.
Yeah, one of the other fun groups that we have is around our parents group as well, which is about us as parents getting together and talking about our challenges. And one of those topics was around menopause. And because I think my son, who's 16, is going to be an expert by the time he's somebody's partner. So we talk about stuff like that as well. How can we encourage like our children, and how can we have the conversations at home? It's because if you're having comfortable conversations at home, then you are going to feel better about yourself when you come into work as well, aren't you?
Absolutely. No, excellent. So thank you, guys. I'm going to assume there's no more questions, but if you do want to raise your hand before I say goodbye, please do. But yeah, all I need to do really say thank you to Emma for coming along. Thanks to her cheerleaders from Target Group for supporting her, for delivering this session. We will share the slide deck, I assume, Emma, you're okay with that, with everyone that signed up, along with the transcript. When I post this on YouTube, the recording, I will put my email address in the comments. So if anybody isn't on the registration list but does want access to the slide decks and things, you can email me and ask for that. But yeah, I'll leave you all to have a wonderful rest of your Friday afternoon. Have a great weekend. And we'll see you next time. We've got an interesting topic to discuss. Thanks all.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Bye.